And if you look at the future of this, we're going to be embedded in a sea of information services that are connected to massive databases in the cloud.
If you take a look at everything that you touch in everyday life, the majority of these things were invented many years ago, and they're ripe for reinvention. And when they get reinvented, they're going to be connected. They're going to be connected in some way. That data that comes off of these devices that you touch is going to be collected and stored in a central location, and people are going to run big data algorithms on this data, and then you're going to get the feedback of the collective whole rather than the individual.
So it's taking people who are already out there, already have these devices, and turning all these people into contributors of information back to the system. You become one of the nodes on the network. I think the internet, as wondrous as it's been over the last 20 years, was like a layer that needed to be in place for all these sensors and devices to be able to communicate with each other.
And there's always that moment in data visualization where you're looking at, tons and tons and tons of data. The point is not to look at the tons and tons and tons of data, but what are the stories that emerge out of it.
We said, look, give me the home street address of everyone who entered New York State Prison last year, and the home street address of everyone who left New York State Prison last year. And we said, look, let's get the numbers, put it on a map, and actually show it to people. And when we first produced our Brooklyn map, which was the first one we did, they hit the floor. Not because nobody knew this. Everyone knew anecdotally how concentrated the effect of incarceration was, but no one had actually seen it based on actual data. We started to show these remarkably intensive concentrations of people going in and out of prison, highly disproportionately located in very small areas around the city.
And what we found is that the home addresses of incarcerated people correlates very highly with poverty and with people of color.
You had a justice system which, by all accounts, is supposed to be essentially based on a case-by-case individual decision of justice. But when you looked at the map over time, what you really were seeing was this mass population movement out and mass population resettlement back, this cyclical movement of people.
So once we had mapped the data, we quantified it in terms of how much it cost to house those same people in prison.
And that's where we started to think about million-dollar blocks. We found over 35 individual city blocks in Brooklyn alone, for which the state was spending more than $1 million every year to remove and return people to prison. We needed to reframe that conversation. And what immediately emerged out of this was this idea of justice reinvestment. We weren't building anything in those places for those dollars. How can we demand sort of more equity for that investment to extract those neighborhoods from what decades of criminalization has done? And that shift had to come from the data and a new way of thinking about information.